Perfect. I would like to send my sympathy to the attendees of this side event, sharing very interesting but disturbing testimonies. I would like also to thank Jubilee Campaign and the European Center for Law and Justice for the invitation and for the opportunity to raise awareness about the plight of Christians in Algeria today. So the facts speak for themselves. All evangelical churches in Kabylia have been closed. Services are interrupted by the police, sometimes with gunfire, while family are gathered peacefully to pray. In September 2022, the Catholic NGO Caritas was forced to close its doors. Pastors have been arrested and sentenced to prison terms. But detention also arbitrarily affects what we call ordinary believers. As we speak, some 50 Christians are facing legal proceedings in Algeria for practicing their religion without authorization. For the record, in November 2021, Pastor Salaheddin Shala, president of the Protestant Church of Algeria, was arrested. Pastors Mohamed Griles, Birki Tariq, and Tariq Jabbar are under judicial supervision and prohibited from leaving the country. Foudil Baloul was given a suspended sentence for alleged proselytizing. Hamid Soudad was sentenced to 5 years in prison for a publication deemed offensive to Islam. Abdelghani Mamri, Mebrouk Mouhakaz, and others were found guilty of, I quote, disrespecting Islamic principles, unquote. On November 27, 2023, Pastor Youssef Ouhamhan, vice-president of the Algerian Protestant Church, was sentenced to 1 year in prison, along with 5 congregants who were sentenced to 3 years in prison for holding a worship service. The case of Slimane Bouhafs is particularly emblematic. A Kabyle activist and Christian, he was sentenced in 2016 to 2 years in prison for, I quote, offending the prophets and denigrating the dogma and precept of Islam, unquote, in connection with posts on Facebook. Released in 2018, he fled to Tunisia, where he was granted refugee status. And on August 27, 2021, 5 years, despite his UNHCR protection status, he was abducted by the Algerian Secret Service and brought back to Algeria in the trunk of a car, where he was placed in preventive detention for, I quote, belonging to a terrorist organization and undermining the integrity of the national territory, unquote. The political shift is striking. Sentenced to 3 years in prison, tortured, he was released on September 1, 2024, and constantly returned. He and his family are prohibited from leaving the country and struggle to make ends meet. Harassment is a daily occurrence for Christians in the workplace, but also for children with Christian names at school. Even the deceased cannot rest in peace and their family cannot mourn with dignity, as the authority refused to issue death certificates, with all the complications that this entails for funerals and inheritance. The Algerian government, as well as judges who have no independence whatsoever, like to point out that freedom of religion is enshrined in the Algerian constitution. But this conflicts with Ordinance 0603 of 2006, which severely regulates the practice of non-Muslim religions. All religions' activity must be authorized by the administration. Places of worship must be approved, which is never the case for churches. And any attempt to convert a Muslim to another faith is punishable by imprisonment. Added to this is Article 140-44(2) of the Penal Code, which punishes any offense against the prophets or the dogmas of Islam, thus providing a legal basis for prosecution for blasphemy. Furthermore, Article 2 of the Algerian Constitution stipulates that Algeria is Arab and Muslim. Consequently, opposing Islam, as defined by the Algerian authorities or Arab identity, becomes an attack on state security. And when I say opposing, I simply mean professing another faith in one's heart, even in a completely peaceful and discreet manner. Possessing Christian writings or praying Kabyle could be considered as an offense to Muslims or an act of proselytism. And this is where arbitrariness comes in, the theme that brings us together today. The notion is left to the discretion of judges. But this is not solely a religious problem. The Algerian authorities make everything political. And this political shift, which automatically becomes a security issue, justifies all kinds of abuses. We have the list of Christian prisoners, which we cannot disclose for security reasons, but 99% of them are Kabyle. First of all, because Christianity is now practically only represented in Kabylia for historical, cultural, and social reasons, but also because Christians have become the government's prime target, because they embody all that is unique about Kabylia. It is not me who is making this a political issue. It is the Algerian government and the FLN, the party in power since independence, which is responsible for giving it this land. Liberation was hijacked by a coup d'etat immediately after decolonization in order to impose a monolithic Arab and Muslim identity on Algeria, which is in fact a mosaic of peoples. Algeria has already emptied itself from its Jews, and now the steamroller of single identity is crushing the Kabyles, including Christians, who are now suffering a double punishment. It is becoming urgent for the Algerian authority to loosen the stranglehold of Algerian identity and stop criminalizing peaceful groups for undermining state security or even for terrorism. Berber North Africa gave birth to giants such as Augustine, or popes such as Victor I, Miltiad, and Gelasius. It is a pluralistic land, and it will be so simple to grant their citizens the fundamental right, no more, no less. So thank you for listening.